This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The Persian Gulf crisis is invading American pockets, robbing consumers of buying power. The government reported today that the rising cost of fuel is helping to drive inflation toward the border of double-digit territory. These higher prices are about to pull the trigger on the biggest Social Security cost of living increase in more than 8 years. CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady has the facts and figures.
Keep handing it over, mister. You're buying gasoline. The cost of living rose a high-octane 0.8% last month. The second straight month it's been that high, fueled again by a jump in energy prices, including gasoline, up 9.5%.
Look at that bill, it's atrocious.
If the cost of living keeps going up like this for a year, the annual inflation rate would hit 9.5%. 1989 inflation, 4.6%.
There's still going to be more effects in the fourth quarter from what happened to energy late in the third quarter.
Clothing, medical care, and entertainment all were up. And while food rose just a touch, food distributor John Rotelli says that could end soon.
You could probably see anywhere from 5 to 7% increases in food come the first of the year.
All this means Americans, already hurt by rising prices, have to learn to stretch their dollars even further in the months ahead.
Paychecks will not keep up, have not kept up, and as a result, we'll see a slowing in spending power.
You can't keep on going to the bank. You run out of money.
America's 40 million Social Security recipients will benefit from all this. Their checks are tied to inflation, and with today's high rate, they'll get 5.4% more starting in January. Dan?
Ray Brady, thanks. These latest economic jolts came as the U.S. Senate worked towards final passage tonight of its own version of a budget deficit plan, one that's a lot different from what President Bush wants and a whole lot different from the one passed by the House when it comes to whose taxes would go up and whose benefits would get cut. From Capitol Hill, CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has the latest.
Dan, the Senate is headed toward passing its own tax package to cut the deficit tonight, but unlike the plan passed by the House earlier this week, this one does not require the wealthy to pay most of the new taxes, a feature that left some Senate liberals in a fury.
Let us remember, the middle class in this country has no more to give. The poor have nothing to give, so let's go and get it from those who got it.
It was just that kind of talk that sent the president out to say he's leaning to the Senate approach.
When some members of the Congress talk about soaking the rich, they really do mean raising taxes on everybody.
Figures supplied by the Joint Congressional Committee on Taxation show just how the plans differ. Under the House plan, the taxes of those who make $20,000 to $30,000 a year increase 1%. Under the Senate plan, 2.7%. That difference is maintained to around $100,000. The biggest differences come for those who make more than $200,000 a year. Under the House plan, their taxes go up sharply, 7.4%. But under the Senate plan, only 3.7%.
The Senate plan concentrates heavily on raising gasoline taxes that particularly affect low and middle income Americans. The House plan, by contrast, gets nearly 2/3 of all its new taxes from people over $200,000 a year.
Using figures supplied by Congress, Greenstein's group concludes that under the House plan, those who make $200,000 or more would bear 63% of the new taxes, with those who make less than $50,000 paying only 11%. That is far different from the Senate plan, where those who make less than $50,000 will pay a larger share of the taxes than those making $200,000. The differences in the two plans must now be worked out in a House-Senate conference committee, and one of the conferees concedes they'll have their work cut out for them.
It's not going to be the prettiest conference you ever did see.
For sure, there are more arguments ahead, but now that the process is at least heading toward a conclusion, the president's people have assured congressional leaders that Mr. Bush will sign emergency legislation that will prevent the government from running out of money at midnight tomorrow. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. A budget deficit deal that won't raise income tax rates on the rich is to President Bush's liking, but it is no crowd pleaser to middle-income Americans. Many feel that they're being taken to the cleaners for the tax mess, the savings and loan foul-up and Wall Street greed, while the rich get richer. Correspondent Richard Threlkeld is here now with our latest report on who pays. Tonight, some context on the politics and economics of trying to soak the wealthy. Richard?
Dan, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, God must have loved the middle-income taxpayer. He made so many of them. And a good thing, too. If we had to depend on just the rich to balance the budget, we'd be in trouble, although there are a lot of taxpayers who'd sure like to try.
It's disgraceful that the wealthy people get the tax break. It's a disgrace.
We work hard for our money, and they don't. They sit behind a desk and paper push.
When you hear that on the street, you can expect to hear this on Capitol Hill.
Time to stand up for the little guy, the one who doesn't have $1 million.
The tax bills in Congress all feature various new taxes on the wealthy. That's good politics, but it's no cure-all for the deficit problem. It's a question of numbers. The rich, those who make more than $200,000 a year, make up only 1% of the taxpayers. They already pay 15% of the income taxes. Even the higher income tax House Democrats want to levy on the wealthy, the so-called soak the rich tax, would still net only an additional $10 billion a year. Just a drop in the deficit bucket.
The great bulk comes from people who make between $50,000 and $150,000 a year, because that's where most of the people are. I mean, it's business about taxing millionaires. There aren't enough millionaires to generate much money.
Besides, a lot of economists think Congress is depending too much on taxes to cut the deficit. Arthur Laffer's one of the founders of Reaganomics.
The real problem is government spending and controlling people. I mean, you don't just go to your boss and ask for a raise because you're spending more than your income. But that's what Congress does. It makes no sense.
But Congress has been afraid to make the really deep cuts in spending on Social Security and health programs that will make a difference in the deficit, because those cuts are highly unpopular. Sooner or later, though, Congress will have to bite that bullet or risk giving the economy, which is already suffering the sniffles, a bad case of pneumonia.
If we continue to skirt the issue, then I think we've got some real hard times in the 1990s.
So there's a whole lot more at stake tonight on Capitol Hill than just whether the government may or may not be shut down come this weekend, Dan.
Richard, thanks. The U.S. Postal Service is pushing the edge of the envelope to try to crack down on an increasingly popular form of drug smuggling. More and more drug traffickers are using the U.S. mail to distribute drugs. Postal Service agents are responding with a new tactic. Law correspondent Rita Braver has been looking into door-to-door drugs by mail.
Let's go. Let's hit it. Let's hit it. Let's hit it.
In Houston, Texas, U.S. postal inspectors make a special delivery.
We have a warrant to search this house.
The postal agents, along with local police, are here because the residents of this house have just received 26 pounds of marijuana, courtesy of the U.S. Postal Service's express mail.
We deliver for you.
What makes it attractive to people that want to use it for distribution of drugs? They're virtually guaranteed that it will arrive there safe.
The rise in the use of the U.S. mails to ship drugs is something the Postal Service has set out to change with Operation Clean Sweep. CBS News got an exclusive look behind the scenes. In 27 cities around the country, inspectors monitor customers at express mail facilities.
We have a printer here that will print out a picture off the video screen to give us a description of the suspect. We have an inspector waiting to retrieve the parcel once it goes across the counter. We also have an inspector outside who will surveil the individual when he leaves to try to determine his identity.
Suspicious packages are isolated and drug-detecting dogs are brought in. If the dogs react to a package, postal inspectors get a warrant to open it. If drugs are found,
we hope to identify the mailer and to identify the recipients and arrest all the people involved.
Inspectors in Los Angeles spotted Ludi Washington mailing this package. It turned out to be 3 kilos of cocaine. Washington is a bit actor previously seen in this film.
Are y'all crazy?
He's now doing 6 years. But sometimes there are mistakes. Agents followed this man.
He's made a large parcel express mail, and he doesn't look like an individual that would normally use express mail to ship something.
He was, in fact, shipping an innocent package to his father.
Just because I look like somebody who might commit a crime, you're going to follow me home?
Well, yeah, that is not the intent of the cameras or the gathering of information.
But it's what happens.
Well, it may happen. It may happen if a person meets that profile, and if they have mailed a parcel that that appears to be drug-related.
And sometimes the dogs get confused. This package turned out to contain prescription drugs, tortillas, and a videotape. The postal inspectors argue that possible civil liberties violations are less important than the sanctity of the mails.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. I think keeping the mail system secure. The mail system is a major part of the commerce of the United States, and it's very important to the country.
Hampton, Virginia. Police prepare to visit the address on this package containing 4.5 ounces of cocaine. Later, the Postal Service delivers it to this middle-class neighborhood while undercover inspectors keep watch. A little while later, since Operation Clean Sweep began in April, there have been 1,200 such arrests, and the Postal Inspection Service wants anyone thinking of shipping drugs to remember, it doesn't pay to mess with the mail. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
A federal judge in Los Angeles tonight ordered lower bail for jailed savings and loan financier Charles Keating. Keating has been held on $5 million bail since last month on criminal charges growing out of the collapse of his Lincoln Savings and Loan, the single most expensive S&L failure in the country. Keating's bail was cut tonight to $300,000.